Welcome forward here with the return to Consciously Creating Circumstances by George Winslow Plummer. We're entering into chapter 2 entitled Dual Action. We agreed at the beginning of this discussion to start with some things so evident that we could easily agree on them. From there, we arrived at an analysis of what was behind those things that we agreed on. We decided that everything in nature, or man's world, arises from one basic cause, which is invisible, universal, mental, creative, and not material, and we call the expression of this great first cause the universal mind. What does that mean to us personally and practically? If, for instance, we should discover that each of us can use that fact consciously to our own advantage, wouldn't that be a great discovery? Let us see. How can we get at least a partial idea of what mind is? I suggest a comparison that has been helpful to many people in gaining a better understanding of this very important point. On any electric circuit, we find different kinds of appliances functioning. Vacuum cleaners, lamps, bells, motors, all are driving their power to operate from the dynamo in the powerhouse. A lamp draws much less power than a big motor uses, but they operate in the same electrical voltage. Break the circuit to the dynamo, the lamp goes out. The motor slows down to rest. The vacuum cleaner stops whirling, proving that the one source supplies them all. Mind is something like that. Mind itself is the source of power, comparative to the dynamo. Individually, we are tied into that one infinite source, just as the lamp and the motors are tied into the dynamo. And we may individually vary a lot in the amount of power we develop from the same voltage, just as the big motor develops much more power than the little motor does. But we are all tied into that dynamo of limitless power called the universal mind. The development and bettering of your own life depends on your learning how to draw more power from that great source. For the beautiful fact is that human machines can increase their own power, whereas mechanical contrivances cannot. So we see that when man thinks, he is drawing power from the infinite voltage of the universal mind. But in the human being, the universal mind takes on two different aspects. One aspect includes the direction of activities pertaining to man's normal material, environmental exterior to himself. Therefore, we call it the objective mind. Sometimes we speak of it as the conscious mind. It is simply that part of our thoughts that we direct upon outward things necessary to our mortal, mundane, or material welfare. The outer portion of the universal mind within each of us takes charge of the direction and utilization of forces that operate independently of our conscious or objective phase of mind. Among other things, it directs the function of respiration, digestion, and all the automatic functions of the body that sustains life and that go on without cognizance. This phase of the universal mind within us we term the subjective, sometimes called subconscious. In the human body, the objective mind controls the cerebral spinal nervous system. The subjective mind works through the sympathetic nervous system. These two systems are almost entirely separate, except that the vagus nerve ties the two systems together in one place. The fibers of one system actually join and fuse into the fibers of another system in the vagus nerve. Thus, the two, subjective and objective, are physically one, but ordinarily are occupied in different ways. The subjective with the various activities of sustaining life and promoting growth, and the objective with receiving the reports of senses, with reasoning, etc. The junctions of the two systems in the vagus nerve is a two-way valve, so to speak. The stream of force can either way or even both ways at the same time. Let me read that again. The stream of force can go either way or even both ways at the same time. You might conceive of their connection as being like a revolving door at the entrance to a building. Through the same door you can go from the building into the street, or vice versa, and different persons can go in opposite directions at the same time through the same door. This distinction between objective and a subjective mind is extremely important. What we have to say about it so far can be found in any standard book on psychology, but you can easily prove the distinction for yourself without reference to some other person's ideas. Let's do it now. You know that at this minute you are reading, and this minute you are listening. Certain ideas are being presented to you, and you are considering them. This activity is going on in the objective phase of the universal mind operating through you. You also know that right at this minute, your heart is pumping blood through your veins and arteries. But your thinking mind has nothing to do with that action. That is one example of the activity of the subjective phase of universal mind operating through you. Ordinarily, these two phases of mind operate independently, though they are connected. They do not conflict with each other, yet from time to time we find ourselves forced to control the activity of the subjective mind by the actions of the objective mind. For instance, we get a stomach ache. That means that the subjective process of digestion have gone awry. So the objective mind has to step in, select a medicine, and thereby help the subjective mind to do its work properly. In the foregoing paragraph is contained a very great fact. The objective mind, under certain circumstances, can and does control the subjective. Likewise, the subjective can influence the objective, for the connections work both ways. There is one more important point for you to note now. When the normal digestive process stops, it is simply because for the time being it has been overtaxed. The subjective mind governing digestion has not decided to stop working. It still labors hard to carry digestion on, but a bad food combination overcomes its power. The subjective cannot stop its work as long as there is life in the organism. It is absolutely automatic and completely without a will of its own. It can only carry out orders, being unable to distinguish between the correctness or stupidity of those orders. Your subjective mind has few orders to carry out except those, so to speak, which it received at your birth. These were to carry on the vital function of breathing, assimilation, digestion, etc. Implicit in the very fact of life But we shall soon see that there are other kinds of order which you can give to the subjective mind, and which it can and will carry out automatically, exactly as ordered. In the foregoing paragraphs, no attempt is made to give explanation conforming to any particular theological doctrines or scientific theories. Nothing has been said that cannot be proved by you for yourself. Each statement contains a simple truth, stated in such terms that anyone may check it up from his own experience. Enough has been said already to show that things don't happen to us by chance. There is no such thing as luck. Everything is the result of some cause, whether that cause be near at hand and easily recognized, such as a crying baby with a pin sticking in it, or remote and seemingly impossible to discover, such as the injustice of John Brown's having a better job than you have. You get unpleasant or pleasant results from your action, depending very largely on how fully you recognize and act with the infinite power of the universal mind, of which you are a vehicle for expression. Whether you make that vehicle a powerful twin-six automobile or a one-horse shay depends from now on nobody but yourself. Remember that the one man who has had more influence on the world than anyone else said, "I do nothing of myself," quote unquote. He spoke the truth, probably the greatest single aspect of truth that you and I can realize. Only through the power of the universal mind can he accomplish the works accredited to him. He, Jesus of Nazareth, knew well how to use that power, and he said that others would do equal or greater things in due time. Our references to the Nazarene Master and to other great leaders of the world's thought have no theological significance. No question of their divinity is involved. We are concerned with them and their utterances solely because they are successful men. Their lives and their words may help us in our own quest for happiness. Thus concludes Chapter 2. Chapter 3 is entitled All for One.